Hey ladies, it's Carly here, your perimenopause naturopath and weight loss whisperer for women over 40 who are all so over the eat less, exercise more thing that we keep telling ourselves, right? Welcome to today's episode on Metabolic Alchemist, where I'm going to dive into what I call the cortisol conspiracy. Yes, that hidden hormone sabotaging our best efforts. And it doesn't matter how hard you try. The truth bomb here, ladies, is while everyone's obsessing over that other hormone, estrogen, it's actually your stress hormone cortisol that's secretly conducting this whole hormonal symphony. But you knew that, right? Because I see it everywhere on Instagram and Facebook, and it's like in our face all the time. But guess what? None of us are listening to it. Well, I am, but I'm telling you, all of my clients were. And when it comes to cortisol and it going haywire, everything is going to go down with the ship like Titanic, except your weight goes up, which isn't like Titanic. But anyway, you know what I mean. That's why those exercise more and restrictive diets that we used to stick to in our 30s are now making everything worse, not better. Your cortisol is cranked up to 11, ladies, and those stressful workouts and calorie restrictions that you guys are sticking to are just going to add more fuel to the fire. So today, I'm going to pull back the curtain on exactly how that cortisol affects your metabolism after 40, why those old approaches are failing you, and my simple strategies, natural ones, to finally get this master hormone working for you instead of against you. So get ready to flip that script on stress, reclaim your energy, and watch that stubborn weight finally start melting away. Let's get down to the cortisol conspiracy together. Welcome to podcast number 1, guys, the cortisol conspiracy. Yes, we're starting off with the most important lesson of all. And it's an important lesson because if we can't get this one right, then we're always going to fall back into old patterns. And this is exactly what I see all of my clients doing. And it's why my methodology works. My story, well, I learned the hard way, and it's really what made this turning point in my whole methodology. Have you ever been, asked that question, how did the universe conspire to take you to where you are now for this, epiphany? Well, it was my on the floor of the gym face down moment when my hip decided to go bang. Literally, it stopped working. Like a dog, when you take them for a walk and they decide that they're going to sit down in the middle of the path after about 2.5 kilometers, and you've still got another 2.5 kilometers to go. Have you got one of those dogs? I do. She's a little wuss. Anyway, here I was back in my early 40s, and I was smashing it out daily at the gym because that's what I used to do in my 30s. And that's what always used to work for me, right? And my pants were getting tighter despite eating less. And I just kept saying to myself, well, it's because I'm not working out hard enough or lifting heavier. Does that sound familiar? Are you one of those Carlies back in her early 40s that are smashing it out at the gym? Ladies, this is not what I call laziness. It's what I call the cortisol conspiracy. Now, I know you will remember when you could pull an all-nighter at Revolver. That's for the Melbourne ladies, or any nightclub for that matter, or survive on coffee fumes, maybe still crush some HIIT classes, work all day, and then still zip up your dress at the end of the day, or your favorite jeans. Well, I thought I had the perfect metabolic regime as well until I didn't. Suddenly, in my 40s, I thought my body has decided to stage this evil rebellion against me. Does that sound like your metabolism as well? 40, flip a switch. Hello, evil rebellion. No, ladies, your metabolism hasn't joined witness protection. It's just been held hostage by that hormone we call cortisol. Oh, yes, that hormone we keep on hearing about, but we actually fail to listen. And that was my on the floor moment. It took me a blown up hip to actually hear what my body was telling me. Listen, Carly. Anyway, that's how the universe conspired to get me here. I'm not saying that's a conventional way, but it happened to me. And yes, cortisol has taken your metabolism to Hong Kong, and it's now blowing all its cash on the craps table, ladies. We need to get real. Here is the deal, and I'm going to make it super, super, super simple. When we hit perimenopause, this, amazing thing that starts 2 to 10 years before our periods stop working. So let's call this the warm-up phase. Cortisol, all of a sudden, that was always there, now starts to become that drama queen of a friend. Yep, we all probably have one of those in our friends group that turns drama queen at some stage, or maybe they always were. I don't know. I'm not talking about any of you, my friends out there. This is just a story after all. Well, basically, this drama queen of your friend basically now starts to tell all your other hormones to move over, peasant. I'm going to start running the show. Great. Thanks, cortisol. But when cortisol stays elevated, this is exactly what it's doing. It's starting to run the show. Let me tell you a little bit about that thing, cortisol, and what it does to our other hormones, our sex hormones. We all know estrogen, but what about progesterone? That's actually our calm hormone. Yes, believe it or not, they call it the calm hormone, but I have never met a woman who's in their later stages of their cycle leading up to their period ever seem really calm and together. But that's exactly what progesterone is meant to do, keep us calm in those last 2 weeks. What the? Anyway, I digress, and I'll talk about progesterone another day, but it's meant to be calm. And what happens when cortisol remains high? Well, eventually, this is how I explain it to my clients. You've got this bucket of cortisol, this bucket of stress hormone that's meant to kind of keep us functioning. Well, it's a pretty important hormone, right? We don't want to have no cortisol. That's not ideal either. But if we're churning up all that cortisol through all the stressful things that we're layering on each other these days, the older we get, the more layers of stress we have. Eventually, that bucket for the day is going to run low. And that's a no-no when it comes to running the whole show. So what does it do? It starts this amazing body of us women. It starts going and looking for a backup source. Yeah, a little bit like a Land Cruiser has a reserve fuel tank. Well, our bodies have this reserve fuel tank of cortisol, which is actually progesterone, and it goes and it abracadabras a little bit like an alchemist. It turns progesterone into gold. Gold cortisol for that matter. But what happens to that progesterone? Well, it doesn't just refill itself. No, it just goes down with the Titanic. And that means we're going to get some pretty shitty periods. We're going to be getting irregular periods, spotting periods, late periods. We're going to get pretty shitty. And yes, our husbands are going to know probably before we do that your progesterone has gone to Hong Kong with your cortisol. But anyway, what about the other hormones that this cortisol is hanging out with? Well, guess what? It decides to shove that other important hormone called insulin to the side. In fact, it does this thing where instead of recognizing carbohydrates that we can convert into energy, it decides that it's going to package them all away into these nice little parcels around our middle. Thank you. That's a pretty shit friend. But look, telling you, we really need insulin in our lives. We want to be sensitive to that insulin. We don't want to become resistant to it and store all of that weight around our middle. And exactly that is happening when we're having this midlife crisis called perimenopause. And that's not all. It also tells your thyroid hormones to go and take a break. Yes, when we've got high stress, all of a sudden that main metabolic engine that we've got there that used to run the show now starts to grind to a halt. For all those people who live in Melbourne, I liken this to puffing Billy not actually leaving the station. It's like this furnace that's now gone out. And instead of turning those wheels of the train to get up the hill and make everyone happy, everyone's still at the station and the kids are crying and they're throwing tantrums. That is our thyroid basically being impacted by our cortisol. Now, it's not just thyroid, insulin, and progesterone. Yes, it does impact our estrogen. Yes, I know that estrogen, which is actually called our happy hormone. Yes, progesterone is our calm hormone. Estrogen is our happy hormone. We're meant to be calm leading into a period, and we're meant to be happy when it arrives. Who came up with this analogy of women? It must have been a man. Anyway, I digress. Estrogen can also be impacted by that shithell of a friend, cortisol. Now, not only has your thyroid stopped working, your progesterone gone AWOL, but now your estrogen has gone downhill, and now we start to get random hot flushes, dry vaginas, and a non-existent libido. You can probably tack on a head full of clouds, no energy, hair falling out, skin breaking. Well, all of those other things that we associate with menopause and perimenopause. And it's not because of estrogen's fault. No, it's that bloody shit out of a friend, cortisol. And what does it do? It just keeps playing over and over in our head, and we keep thinking it must be our fault. Because that's what women do. We always blame ourselves, don't we? Are you blaming yourself? Are you thinking that your weight gain is because you're not working hard enough or you're eating too much chocolate, which is another sign of your cortisol impacting, believe it or not? Yes, exactly. This is what we tell ourselves. Exercise more, eat less, no pain, no gain, eating's cheating. I know, because I was telling myself those things as well. Which, ladies, for your metabolism is like telling somebody whose house is flooding to go and turn on all their taps. It's going to make it 10 times worse. So stop and listen. Enough of the drama queen. Let's talk about magical plant solutions. No, it's not going down to Nimbin and grabbing a packet of weed. I know you ladies out there probably thinking that's what I'm talking about, but I'm not. I'm actually talking about adaptogens. What are these adaptogens you talk about? Specifically, my ride or die buddy I call Withania. For all of those who buy their herbs from America, it's called ashwagandha. But no, in Australia, we call it Withania. So put that in your brain because we make great herbs in Australia, ladies, and this is where we want to source our best. Support local. Why not? Okay, so what is an adaptogen? Well, it's a little bit like a chill pill for your adrenals. And guess what? It's been around for centuries, which is kind of like, a little bit late for some of us when we discover it. But when I discovered Withania, it was like finding the perfect bra. It was completely life-changing. So what is an adaptogen? It's something that helps us adapt and cope better. Where did these plants come from? And why did nature give these adaptogens to us? It's amazing, isn't it? And we all need significant coping mechanisms after 40, don't we? Yes, we do. So these adrenal heroes in our plant world come in many shapes and formats. Withania is one of them, helps us cope. Another one of my favorites is called licorice root. Yes, not the candy licorice, although I am partial to some licorice candy. I'm talking about the root, which if you've ever been into a Chinese medicine shop and you smell that funny smell, it's usually licorice root. It is fantastic. And it's in lots of my herbal teas and tinctures for that important reason, because it's adrenal stimulating. What does that mean? Well, hey, it adds a little bit of spark back into your day. And that's also what we need in our life, isn't it? After 40. Okay, so moving past some of my herbal heroes here, let's talk about food medicine because you know I love my food. And one of my secret weapons to this phase of ours is raw cacao. No, not the sugary powder that's masquerading as chocolate powder on your supermarket shelves. I'm actually talking about 100% cacao. Now, think of cacao as your adrenals' best friend. Remember when I said if you're binging on chocolate? Well, it's actually your body is saying, I need cacao, not I need Cadbury Dairy Milk chocolate. No, it's saying I need cacao, and it's because it's packed full of magnesium, theobromine, which is another tongue twister. Don't ask me to say that again. And they pack this beautiful chocolatey goodness full of energy, and it doesn't spike your cortisol whilst consuming it. Now, I'm going to let you in on my favorite brand out there. Hopefully, they send me some more. It's called Loco Love Higher Bean Cacao Powder. You can get it in New Zealand as well because I've got some clients over there and we are happy that it goes to New Zealand. And do you know what the best part of Loco Love is? That's right. It's got my friend in there called Withania. And also another beautiful Chinese herb called ginseng. And both of those included in the cacao makes this the perfect match for your adrenals. Consider it the Holy Spirit of giving back to your body. And guess what? You can have it every day. I know. I know. And it's chocolate, right? So just whack a tablespoon of that in your smoothie or have it as a hot or cold chocolate in the afternoon when your afternoon slump starts knocking on the door. And you can thank me for that later. Okay, what else is in our toolkit from our not only plants but also our food? Well, I'm not sure if it's food, but sea salt or Himalayan salt is a game changer. Just put a quarter of a teaspoon of that beautiful crystally goodness in some water and sip on that when you get up in the morning, and your thyroid is going to love it as well because there's beautiful trace elements of all of those beautiful minerals that helps not only your adrenals but your thyroid too. Now, what other nutrients can we add into the mix? Well, let's chuck a good whack of magnesium in there whilst we're at it. Don't pussyfoot around with magnesium. You want a nice hefty dose. I usually calculate about 10 milligrams per kilo of body weight. But having said that, if you're over 60 or 70 kilos, it's going to be like you're drinking a lot of magnesium powder if you're using that calculation. But look, what I'm saying is make sure you get a minimum of 300 milligrams of a really good magnesium. Probably biglycinate is my favorite for absorption. And if you're really, really fatigued and stressed, you want to do that twice a day. So around 600 milligrams a day. Now, really good magnesium powder out there will have those other amazing stress vitamins called activated B12 and activated Bs. Now, I'm not going to get into activated, but I'm just going to tell you, make sure it is, because a lot of us have this thing called a methylation issue, which means we don't actually use any of those on the shelf B vitamins that haven't actually been activated. They just get wasted. So if you're not sure, pop me a little message in our chat and I will direct you to the right one, or head to my show notes where I've given you handy hints on what my favorite brands are. Now, what about other things in our foods? Well, healthy gut, healthy hormones, right? So, how can I make my gut healthy through food? Well, there's these things called fermented foods, and they are super yummy. My favorite fermented food has to be sauerkrauts, which there are so many out there these days. Make sure you get one that's cold and activated in the supermarket, not on the shelf. I put it on everything savory anyway. And my cortisol is just loving me for it. But let's move on to exercise because This is all about a short podcast, not me rambling on. But I do want to ramble on about exercise because this is, remember how I had my on the floor moment. And that was because I was running myself ragged. I was running, walking, lifting, hitting, spinning, boxing. I was doing every single exercise known to man because I thought that working out harder was my problem. So if you're running marathons and heading to the gym and bench pressing 100 kilos every day and wondering why you're getting fluffier, it's because you're treating your body like it's a 25-year-old's. And guess what? Unless you're 25, it's not. At 40, over exercise is like yelling at somebody's overstressed body, and it's actually very counterproductive. So this is why I went back to the drawing board, and after years of research and testing on the subject, I created what I call the metabolic exercises. And these are 15 to 20 minute exercises that are scientifically proven to actually work on our bodies. Shock horror. Yes, these workouts are like that sensible friend who gets everything done in record time whilst we're all still sitting around the bench having a glass of wine and talking about it. So, yes, I know, 15 to 20 minutes. How can that be effective, Carly? Just trust me, okay? They're not only fat burning, they're going to burn fat for 24 to 48 hours without actually pushing your cortisol over the edge. And it's simple. You just push hard for those short workouts, 20 minutes, rest the next day, and then go back in it and do it the following day. Yes, it's called rest-based training. And these workouts aren't just any old workouts. No, there's an essential element in this combination. It's a cardio intensity with a resistant element. It's not 50 kilo dumbbells. It's just some weight, 1 kilo, 2 kilos, even your body weight. That is where the research has put us. I'm not going to go and poo-poo other people's regimes. I'm just telling you this is what works, and it's worked for hundreds of my clients, including myself. And I've come from the old work harder, lift heavier regime, and it doesn't work. It just sends your body into overdrive. Imagine shocking your metabolism awake rather than beating it into submission. And that's why I ended up on the floor of the gym. So, ladies, it's not all about fat burning exercise and intensity. It's also about resting your metabolism as well. And that metabolism loves a healthy nervous system. That's why yoga is a critical element. And if it's not yoga, then it's meditation. But I just, emphasize it as yoga because it's all beautiful and in one. It's not to be just a nice to have element of your regime. It's something that we should incorporate a couple of times a week at least, especially the breath work. So there's this thing called Nadi Shodhana, and you don't need to remember the name. Just remember that it's alternative nostril breathing. And it's like having a remote for your nervous system. And literally in under 90 seconds, you can switch over from stress mode to rest mode. And simply, we're breathing in through one nostril and then out through the rest. So in through one, out through the other. And you just keep repeating that over and over. Well, for at least 90 seconds anyway. It's like magic, except it's actually science. And your vagus nerve is going to get stimulated. And suddenly, boom, you're not about to lose it at the barista who spelt your name wrong on your coffee again. In fact, you could probably try this in the lineup waiting for your coffee and see how that goes. Now, let's get more woo-woo because I love woo-woo, and I love it because it actually works. There's this thing called a root chakra, and it's the energy center at the base of your spine. It basically is like kryptonite when activated properly. And in yoga, we work these energy centers, these chakras, and where energy goes, energy flows. When you're stuck in that stress mode, you're living in what we call sympathetic nervous system, which is what I call the oh crap, there's a lion coming, run system. Now, we don't want to be in the oh crap, there's a lion coming at us. We actually want to be in a parasympathetic nervous system state. I call this the oh crap, I don't give a shit about the lion system. Anyway, one quick way to activate our parasympathetic nervous system is to chant. Yes, I said chant. And before you poo poo this idea of chanting, I want you to try omming for 30 seconds and consciously tap into this vibration. It's literally massaging your vagus nerve and your brain from the inside. It's like an internal spa for your whole nervous system. I like to do this in the car whilst my daughter is there. And yes, I do get weird looks from my daughter, but you know what? I don't get cortisol spikes when she tells me she's failed maths again. It's so worth it. Now, before we end up, I want you to know that there's a little message for those who think they can run off and jump onto the HRT magical get out of jail free card. Let me drop the truth bomb. Even if you pump yourself full of estrogen and progesterone, if your cortisol is behaving badly, you're basically up shit creek without a paddle. Don't you love Australian slang? I do. It's just perfect. Anyway, HRT might be your perfect calm friend progesterone prop up and your happy friend estrogen, support mechanism, but it won't muzzle the drama friend cortisol that's still hanging around backstage. And here's the thing about menopause that nobody seems to want to admit, and I don't know why. It's actually not something to be avoided. Well, in fact, we can't avoid it. It's like literally part of life. So just pull up your big girl panties and accept that we're going to transition, whether you like it or not. But it's how you transition, which is how you get the nice even road instead of the bumpy, shitty one that some of you us are getting. So I want you to take this opportunity in the warm-up phase. The warm-up phase is perimenopause, and it's the 2 to 10 years before menopause. And if we get this phase right, with all of those natural plants that I've talked about and nutrients, and focusing on not working out more and eating less and being gentle with our body, we can actually smooth out this journey. And if you're already going through menopause and it is getting a little bit bumpy, it's still not too late. Don't throw it all out with the bathwater. No, let's try some natural solutions before we jump into HRT, because I can tell you that propping yourself up with HRT and then inevitably coming off it will only just result in you going through that bumpy road again. So let's see if we can even it out without going into that bumpy end point. And I'm not basically saying that we can't prop up estrogen and progesterone and support it whilst we're supporting cortisol, but we can actually do it naturally. And there's some amazing other plant friends out there that can do that just as well. They're powerful and they are simple to implement, as well as your adrenal hormones like chaste tree for progesterone and wild yam, dong quai, red clover for estrogen. They're all very, very powerful in a tincture format. And if you're not getting results in a retail tablet, then maybe work with a naturopath or herbalist to make a stronger formula for you. I'm not anti-HRT, especially if it's bioidentical. I'm just saying, don't rely 100% on HRT when there's other options out there. So let's think broader, deeper, and smarter. Cortisol is the driver of the hormonal bus, and no amount of hormone replacement is going to fix a crazy driver. So let's save HRT for an absolute last resort when you really need it, because we have another line of defense that we can try first. So moving on, ladies, I'm all about action. So let's get into your action plans for this week. Go and grab some Loco Love or 100% cacao and add that to your daily treat regime. Choose a herbal formula that's going to work with your adrenals, not against them. Make sure it includes withania, licorice, maybe add some chaste tree for progesterone, dong quai for estrogen if you're having a few bumpy roads there. I want you to practice 90 seconds of Nadi Shodhana, of alternative nostril breathing. You can do it all the time. Just don't do it when you're driving. Save that for omming. And also, let's try and implement at least 2 of our 15 to 20 minute metabolic exercise regimes instead of that old push hard, lift heavy regime that you're probably sticking to where it's not getting you any results. And yes, I did mention omming, and I do want you to add this to your regime as well. Om away. Now, I want to tell you that this actually works. I have a client called Bobby. Yeah, you might be watching Bobby, and she followed these steps. And within 2 weeks, she reported in our follow-up coaching call that her energy had gone from a 1 or 2 out of 10, she was literally on the floor, to a 6 and a 7 out of 10. She wasn't needing her afternoon naps. She could think clearer. And literally, these things were game changers for her ability to function, and just 2 weeks. And it can happen for you too. Remember, your metabolism isn't broken. It's just being kidnapped by that shitty friend cortisol. And finally, today you got the ransom note. So in our next episode, I'll reveal more metabolic wisdom. But until then, maybe what you really need is a trip to Koh Samui at my upcoming wellness retreat. It's exactly what your adrenals need, packed with all of the adrenal loving that you can have. And maybe if you've got one of those shitty cortisol friends, you can bring them with you, and we'll change her into a really cool friend by the end. Until then, I'm Carly Gallagher, reminding you that sometimes the path to fat loss is actually doing less, not more. And if anyone tries to tell you different, just in their ear and see what they do. Who knows? They might just disappear. And that's a wrap. Phew. If something clicked for you today, I've got all the links to my favourite products, supplements, and exactly where to buy them waiting for you in the show notes. No hunting required. Want more personalised support? I totally get it. This journey can be overwhelming when you're doing it all on your own. Whether you're ready to jump into my one-on-one coaching programs or test it out first in my online metabolic flash course, I've got your back. Just head to the show notes for the links to those pages or my website, inner-alchemy.com.au, and let's turn those frustrating symptoms into your comeback story. Because honestly, the best version of you isn't in your past. She's waiting on the other side of these new rules. Until next time, remember, work smarter, not harder. Thanks for sticking around. I'll see you in the next episode.